You're listening to the Wrestling Change My Life podcast.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
You know, if I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've done it. It's here, another episode of Wrestling Change My Life podcast, and thank you for listening. My guest today is Topher Carton, who was a national qualifier for the Iowa Hawks, and before that was a 4-time state finalist and 3-time state champ. I've known Topher for a long time, had the privilege of coaching him back when he was in 8th grade and for a couple years after that. Before we get into it, my guest of the week goes to Tristan Finch, who's a longtime friend and supporter of the podcast. Thank you, Tristan. Now, without further ado, let's take you to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, for this interview with Topher Carton.
What's up, my brother? How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. How are you?
Outstanding. Where are you at this morning?
I am on my patio in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, drinking a cup of coffee, watching the cars roll by right now, and watching this massive storm coming in.
Dude, is there anything more peaceful than having a cup of coffee in the morning like that?
No, it's fantastic. Right now. I just started doing this bulletproof coffee with that MCT oil and like the clarified butter, and it's pretty life changing. I get so much done now. I drink 1 cup of coffee and it lasts me all day, and I'm like hyper aware of everything. It's crazy.
I make it every morning. I just made it myself, dude. I love it.
I feel great all the time now. I was bummed because I ran out of my ghee. And I ran out of my MCT oil all at the same time, so I've been just drinking regular coffee, and that felt like a bomb.
Not the same. Not even close to the same. So I've done the MCT oil before. I started using coconut oil in the past year. Where do you get your MCT oil from?
Hy-Vee, greatest grocery store in America.
Well, in honor of you, I'm drinking out of my Iowa Hawkeyes coffee mug this morning. So,
right on, man.
You're here in spirit, brother, in the Windy City right now.
Yeah. Hey, how's Chicago treating you?
Dude, I love it, man. It's good to be so close to Tanner. We're about a mile apart, and so much cheaper than San Francisco. But the weather the winter weather is a little tricky though.
Yeah, I remember that was cold. It was windy. It was hard to escape that wind. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, no, it's freezing. So it's good though. I like being close to family and friends and all that. And I was out in California for almost 5 years, so I had some good times out there, obviously. But it was time for a change. So I don't know if I'll be in Chicago forever, but it's good for right now at least.
Well, you're always welcome in Iowa, that's for sure.
Dude, my mom has an Iowa driver's license now. It's she's full on Iowa. When she talks about Iowa, it's like her child or something. Like she talks about like the state taxes and this and that, and it's like I can't escape it, man. I cannot escape it.
No, I tried to escape it and pulled me back in. I didn't try, but.
So where were you at? Yeah, so after Iowa, where'd you go?
So I went to Oak Park River Forest High School for a year. I got approached by Mike Powell, who's a legend in Illinois wrestling and the national wrestling scene as far as an athlete and a coach. he reached out to me at the end of my senior year and asked me what my plans were, and I, like every graduating senior, had no plan. And it just kind of fell into my lap, and I was kind of going back between that opportunity and a couple other ones that didn't involve wrestling. And I had a professor my junior or senior year, and we had meetings about what we wanted to do with our lives and everything. It was super interesting class, and it was a bit one-on-one meetings, and he talked to us about like the importance of doing what you love and being able to monetize it, and not chasing that big dollar sign salary when you're young and you don't have any responsibilities, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids, you don't have all these things tying you down to one specific place, and to get out there and experience things. So that kind of was eye opening, and he pressed me a little bit and made me talk about what I wanted, and I talked about coaching wrestling, and I talked about at like a higher level, elite high school, the college level, and then I also talked about some business opportunities, and he was really, really good at reading personalities and reading what you were excited about, and he straight up told me, he's like, you are not excited about these business things you talk about, but I can see that you're excited about the business opportunities of coaching wrestling and kind of making that your own brand. And he told me that that's what he thinks that I should chase. So that, with a combination of a couple other signs, kind of just led me to take that opportunity right away. And it was nice. It was a good opportunity for me to kind of start to hone my skills as a coach, under some great coaches. I had Mike Powell and Paul Collins there, and the entire Oak Park River Forest coaching staff. I met a lot of friends. Nick Nelson, who's a UVA alum, and then Joe Spizak, who's another UVA alum that I'm still very close with. And hopefully I need to get down to Austin and go visit Spizak. He went down there to grow he started a drinking game, and it's awesome. Shout out to Dicey, by the way, Joe Spizak.
Shout out. Powerful. I love the thought of the teacher, though, giving you that information that, like, do what you love versus the money right away. Because I couldn't agree more with it, man. And sometimes it's rare to find people who support that. So what were the options that didn't involve wrestling?
There was a couple medicals. There was a medical supply, like sales position.
Yep.
And then there was just kind of general ones, debating whether I was going to like stay in Iowa City, and because I loved the area, and just kind of find my way, whether it was like waiting tables or whatever I needed to do.
Right.
But it ended up working out. I had an opportunity to move forward with the sport.
And so after Oak Park, where'd you go then?
I spent a year in Oak Park. Kind of realized that I needed to do some other things. It was a good experience, but wasn't like the perfect fit. And I was young, so I was just kind of ready to look around and see what the world had, or the country had. Yeah. So I accepted a graduate assistant position at the University of Mary out in Bismarck, North Dakota. And that was a change, going from Chicago to Bismarck, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So who was the coach there? How'd they lure you out there, and what was that experience like?
There was a position. They were offering a master's degree, and I was going to need a master's degree to do kind of what I wanted at if I was going to teach and coach and everything. I kind of realized after a year that I didn't really want to teach, but as far as like moving forward in any coaching role, everywhere I looked was like requesting a master's. So it seemed like a good opportunity to achieve a master's and continue learning, but also to like hone my skills at a different level. It was head coach out there is Adam Aho. He wrestled for North Dakota State. He's been the head coach. I think this is his fifth year, maybe fifth or sixth year. And he's doing a phenomenal job growing that program out there. Actually, me and one of the other graduate assistants kind of revamped the dual experience. And they have a big community, but we like redesigned the floor for the home duels, and we brought like a student section out onto the floor, mat side, and we put it right next to the opposing coach's like corner. And we had like a kids section and a tunnel with smoke, and it was cool because like the fans loved it. They liked good wrestling and they were loud. We averaged about 1,000 fans per duel, which I mean for a small Division II school in North Dakota, yeah, we had a good turnout. We had 4 or 5 home duels, but it was good. It was good wrestling. And to see how far it's come. I mean, they told stories and showed me pictures of where it's come. And when Adamaho came on, they had, I think, 13 guys on the entire squad. And then by the end of that year, they had, I think, 8 to 10. And then now when I left, they had about 35 to 40 guys on their roster, which is it's incredible. Yeah, they had 2 All-Americans and 3 national qualifiers last year. They took Mankato down to the wire. I mean, it was like came down to the last match sort of thing. It was fun. It was a good experience. I kind of got that college coaching experience, but it was just so far from home. I mean, it's 12 hours one way to get back to the Quad Cities. And it was a lot. And those winters are brutal. You think Chicago's bad, man? It was
worse than here.
Wicked. Yes. It's not like colder, but it's longer. So there was at least a foot of snow on the ground, basically from like October to April.
Oh my God, dude, that's brutal.
Yeah,
but I was gonna say, what experience must have been though to be coaching at a college program, only your second year right out the gate.
Yeah, it was interesting. I learned a lot. That's one of the big things that I learned from both Mike Powell and Adamaho, and then their head assistant Matthew Llewellyn, was relationship building and the importance of not just teaching the technique, but building that culture and building relationships with both guys on the team, but also like recruits and people that you want. So just kind of becoming more of a well-rounded coach rather than just wrestling all the time and learning technique and learning how to fight in the room and all of that.
Right. Yeah, I know that. I was reading a book about John Wooden, and he's like one of the greatest coaches ever. And that's all they talk about is like relationships and how to get the best out of people. And then I'm doing this documentary on Dan Gable that's going to come out in mid-August. And I've been reading books on him. And he was the same way. Like he was like super hard-nosed, but great relationship guy, really funny, and knew how to get the best out of the guy. So, no doubt that's part of the early things you're learning. And so what are you doing now back at Cedar Rapids?
So when I was out there, it kind of, and my girlfriend, Kelsey, you've met Kelsey, right?
I don't know if I have actually. Did she go to North Dakota with you?
Yeah, she moved to Chicago and out to North Dakota with me. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know how she didn't kill me. But it got to be a lot, just because we're so far from family. We're isolated. It was actually really good. Probably for us, I mean, as young adults, just learning how to kind of thrive on our own. But it got to be a lot.
So isolated out there.
Yeah, it got to be a lot. So before I left Chicago, I had applied for the Eastern Iowa Wrestling Club director position, but I applied late in the process, and they had already made a couple offers. So Larry Lee, Spencer Lee's dad, is the vice president out at Coe College, and when I was out at North Dakota, and before I moved out there, they called me and they were like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, like we just made this offer. We wish you would have applied sooner." So then when I was out there, he called me and was like, "Hey, this position might open up within the year. Are you interested still? And you're going to pay me some money to come back to Iowa and be super close to home and coach and be able to come in the Hawkeye room again?" Yeah, I'm interested. So I'm thinking, like I'll be able to kind of finish this year out on like no problem, get through the summer or whatever, and then move back. He calls me like a week later. It's like, hey, it's opened up. Do you want the job? So I kind of had to scramble a little bit to get things in order and talk. The coach was great. Adam Aho was phenomenal, and he understood it. And I talked to him. I was very upfront with him, and he told me to go. And it was hard to leave a lot of those guys, just because I'd starting to get close with some of them.
That's the hardest part for sure. Is leaving a relationship with the guys.
So it was a quick move. I think he called me. It was before the Division II national tournament. It was so that's probably February.
Yeah,
early February, and or maybe late February, whatever that was. I moved into my apartment and started working on April 1st, so it was a quick turnaround as far as that goes. But it's a good change. I really like it a lot. It's a great mix of kind of everything. I get to do some event planning. We just hosted Fargo camp for Team Iowa. That was awesome. I had my camp here. We had Alex Marinelli, Spencer Lee, Michael Kemmer, and Terry Brands as our clinicians. It's fun to be able to kind of experience a middle ground of like the elite high school and then the college, where I still get that relationship building, but it's a little bit more about developing and having fun and enjoying the sport and what it can offer for a young adult or a young child.
Well, I mean, it is the best of both worlds, because you're also at Co College, which that's some of the best people I've ever met in wrestling. I love Coach O.
Yeah, Coach O is the man.
The man, dude. When Tanner was there, we had so much fun there. Like Jimmy Gatto, Clayton Rush, Ethan Ball. Like, I know Clayton's not there anymore, but that's someone I'm really close with. But that's like that culture is probably the best wrestling culture I've ever been around. And that's where the Eastern Iowa Club is at. So talk about what you're going to be doing with Co. And what is the Eastern Iowa Wrestling Club? Is it for kids? Is it for adults? What's that look like? Not adults.
Yeah, one of the attractions for me to this position was that they wanted me to be like a volunteer assistant for Co. I didn't really have to like go and ask. They wanted me to do that. So it really is, like you said, the best of both worlds, because I get that club coaching experience, but they're also letting me kind of wrestle and develop some of the guys as much as I can, and kind of learn from Coach O and Coach Gatto, who are phenomenal coaches. And when we talked about relationship building and culture building, they're some of the best in the game. So I'll be helping out with that. They let me wrestle, which is awesome, because I still need to stay in shape. And then the Eastern Iowa Wrestling Club is sort of an extension in a way of the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. It's geared towards like youth and elite high school wrestlers.
Okay.
And just kind of developing them towards the next level. We wrestle 2 times a week, so folk style will be 5 times a week. Come September, we'll wrestle 2 of those days in Carver Hawkeye, which gives us kind of an elite venue advantage, because I mean, what kid in Iowa doesn't want to wrestle in Carver Hawkeye Arena?
Totally.
So that's kind of nice, and it gives me a reason to be back in the room and kind of have a little bit of nostalgia.
Totally.
And the other times we're in Co, which is a great facility. They just renovated it, and it is top level. It's about 3 or 4 full mats of square footage. They have 3 actual full mats for wrestling, and then some runoff. They're putting a lot of money into facilities and renovating not just athletics but overall campus. They're doing a great job. They got a new weight room in there for us. It's great. So as far as the club, yeah.
If there's a kid listening to this and they're between schools in Division III, you cannot find a better place than Co. I'm telling you, I love that college. I'm so pumped you're there, dude.
Yeah.
It's so ironic you're there, because
it's weird.
Do you talk to Ethan at all ever? Do you see him?
Yeah, the first day I was there, I ran into him and he was working out. I didn't even know he was living in Cedar Rapids, and I just kind of one of those like, "What are you doing here?" And he looked at me, "What are you doing here?" So then he ran into his locker and grabbed me a co jacket and gave it to me my first day. So it was kind of interesting, and I don't think any of the other coaches like realized like we had a. I mean, we were pretty close relationship. Obviously, not as close as you guys were, but we wrestled in similar clubs. We were both outlaws growing up.
Oh yeah.
So it was an interesting experience just seeing him right away, and I still need to reach out to him and go get a drink with him or something sometime soon.
Oh, you got to, man. He's the man.
So
I think that he's involved there still. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ball, if you're listening, I'm working on it. I'm getting there.
I mean, he must have coached you and just been friends with you through the outlaw program for years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I remember we were in the state finals together for his senior year, I believe. I think he's 4 years older than me, or 3 years.
Yeah, Illinois
I think
High
he's
School,
a senior. Yeah, we were in the state finals together. But yeah, I remember him vividly, and all of the antics that we used to get into. It was pretty fun.
Oh my God, dude. We were telling the story the other day where we were this is like the first year of the Outlaw Club. We were driving up to not Fargo, but the one north of that for like for the Northern Plains. And is it Bismarck? It might be Bismarck. Is that like an hour and a half north of Fargo?
It's Bismarck is like an hour and a half west, like northwest of Fargo. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if you were on this trip or not, but we were
I was
going to
not. I
Bismarck.
remember this trip though.
Okay. So old man Parks, we load up his van, like 8 wrestlers.
Oh man,
and he's like,
van.
Oh yeah, dude. He's like, I'll drive halfway. I go, no problem. Because to your point, it's a long drive, like 12 hours. He drives
in good condition.
In good condition. He drives to Cedar Falls and calls it a day.
That's like an hour.
An hour, dude. So I drive the rest of the way, and the only CD he has is Scarface, and it's just on repeat, dude. By the time I get out of that car, I'm ready to murder someone. And on the way back, so we get there, drive all through the night, get there like 7 a.m, can't even check into our hotel until 1, so we're just hanging out in the parking lot. And then we have the tournament. It's like 4 or 5 days. We drive back, and we're so desperate to get back because it's so far away. It's like raining, and we're in Fort Dodge, Iowa, and I was speeding like 25 over. I get a ticket in Fort Dodge. I got to pull over in Fort Dodge. I got a ticket. I had to drive back there like a month later because of this ticket I got driving back from the Northern Plains in Parks' van. It was one of many stories out there on the road.
Oh yeah. There was that other one when you took me, the Chase brothers, maybe the Ryan brothers as well. We went up to somewhere in northern Iowa for a tournament, and it was a banger. I remember that one because it was you, I think Tanner or Ball, one of the two, and we were in somebody's like black SUV Jeep type things.
That was my car.
Safe.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Not safe for like 8 kids in the car.
No one had seatbelts on. No. And that's the West Delaware tournament in Manchester.
Yeah. And I ended up, I was up big in the finals and got headlocked and pinned, and still won the tournament because I was back when it was like by pool points.
Yeah.
But I remember we had I don't think anybody won the tournament outright and went undefeated. And but we had a couple people win the tournament. I remember the Chase brothers told you to pull over at a cornfield, and they forced me out of the car and made me chuck my medal into the cornfield.
Oh my God. Those guys are absolute animals. Those maniacs.
Yeah.
I remember Drake Chase once brought a cattle prod to that tournament and would go up to people on the team because we rolled into that tournament deep. That was like one of our season opener tournaments we go to as a club. And
yeah,
I think we'd hand out gear in the parking lot at that one, and we'd roll in the thick. And Chase Brothers, though, Drake Chase, brought a cattle prod to it and was zapping people in the stands all day. I'll never forget that.
I remember because I told him that if he zaps me, that I was gonna choke him out, and he might be able to. He was a little bigger than me. You might be able to beat me, but I will definitely take some chunks of you with me, man. Don't zap me with that thing.
Oh my god, dude! I think I was the same way, dude. I'm like, don't even bring that thing near me, dude. But dude, how insane? Tanner and I talk about this all the time. How insane were those outlaw rooms back in the day when it was at like UT and Rocky and Assumption, dude?
Oh, let's go way back to the real origins at Jordan North in that storage closet of a classroom where we had to split the club in half because we could only have 6 guys wrestling at a time. You remember that?
Yeah, I mean, folks, he's not kidding. This was a classroom at an old Catholic school. Building has to be out of code. I don't even know how.
Oh yeah, they condemned it. They condemned it. They don't have classes there. Yeah, it's condemned.
No.
Yeah.
Oh. So they condemned this thing. The wrestling room was literally a classroom where you could fit maybe a third of a mat in there. It was
a storage classroom, right? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah, it was. And then the wall mats were styrofoam, pink styrofoam that were glued to the walls.
And they didn't cover the steam heaters. They had those old like 1920s steam heaters in there.
Oh my God, that's right. And if you bumped it, it would burn the shit out of you.
Yeah, and Kevin DeFries used to put our backs up against it and make us hand fight off the heaters.
Oh my God, that guy! I just saw him recently at Tony's wedding, and we were wrestling the whole time. My girlfriend's like,
"Of course,
what's wrong with you people?" We actually sat with your mom and dad. We were watching a Final X on my phone the whole time, and some people weren't.
Oh, that sounds about right. That sounds right. Yeah, I didn't get to make it back for that one. I forget what I had going on that weekend. I think I had to work.
It was a good time though. But no, dude, that was the first wrestling room, and it was very neat. How many people do you think you could fit in there? 10?
At the most, because I remember we had our. That was when you were helping with the junior pioneers, and we had to split the team in half. Right?
Exactly. That was my first experience with you. Louis Montes called me in the fall, and he's like, "Yo, I'm coaching this middle school team. Do you want to be an assistant?" I go, "Sure." And I had no idea what I was getting into. I meet all these people. I meet you, Parks, DeFries,
Georgian.
Yep. And before you know it, dude, we had Parks wrestling for Allman at like the Sterling Middle School tournament, and I'm like, how does this work? He doesn't even go to school here.
Yeah, they weren't happy about that, and they wouldn't let him.
Do you remember that?
So.
We went to the Sterling tournament, and they were wrestling.
Yeah, they didn't let him wrestle. I think it was maybe Dixon had a couple of guys, and they wouldn't wrestle him. So I think me, you, and the Parks brothers, and Mr. Parks and my dad drove back to Allman and worked out after that because they wouldn't wrestle us.
I didn't know that story. Yeah, that was the Wild West, man. What was it? So you went on to have one of the best high school careers in Quad City history. What was it like going to the Iowa room, and like what are some of those training stories for the folks who could only imagine what it's like in there?
It was humbling. You go in and you're coming from the Quad Cities, and you were pretty successful growing up, and you realize that everybody else in the room is as successful or more successful than you, and is bigger, meaner, and tougher because they've been there longer. So it was a humbling experience, and probably good for me, just to kind of learn a little bit about myself. I remember my first workout. Morningstar called me. I was still in high school, and I was leaving that day to go on a vacation with the girl I was dating in high school, and he called me up and said, "Hey, why don't you come to Iowa City and we'll get a workout in?" And he put me through this kettlebell warm up, and then like some rope climbs, and I thought that was the workout. I made it through the kettlebell warm up and climbed a rope, and he goes, "All right, go climb a horizontal rope." And it like ripped my hands open because I had dishpan hands from being in high school. And I'm like, "Oh, cool! Like we're done." He goes, "All right, grab a drink. We're gonna head to the weight room." And my stomach hit the floor.
No way.
Yeah, my hands are bleeding. I got blisters on my shins from climbing ropes because I was wearing ankle socks like an idiot. And made it through that, and I had like blisters on my fingers from the dumbbells and big cuts on my hands. And we were going to Kentucky, and I was going fishing, so I had like gauze and tape all up on my hands so I could hold my
literally gauze
my
and
rod
tape.
and reel. Yeah, that's like it was. I like put gauze on there because it was like an open wound. I had to put when I left, I put gauze and tape and like antibiotic cream on my hands for like a week until it healed.
Wow.
So then I was like fishing with it. But that was my first experience, and I was just like, okay, here we go. But I was pretty lucky. I traveled around to different rooms a lot, and I went down to Medlin and TJ's club, TJ Williams, with Georgian a couple times a week. And when I told TJ that I was going to Iowa, he pulled me aside and he told me that there's going to be days where you feel like you don't belong and that you feel like you can't do it. And the days that you feel like that and you go back for more are the days that you get better. Those are the days that you improve as an individual and as a wrestler. So going in with that kind of advice and mindset was very helpful. I don't know if I like having the mentors that I did. I was lucky. If I didn't have those mentors, I definitely see how people kind of give up and hang it up and can't do it anymore.
Right.
But I was lucky enough to have people like you and people like Jurgens and TJ and Pete and Weatherall and all those guys in my life to kind of shape my mindset to keep moving forward.
Well, I'm humbled, brother, to even be mentioned in the same breath as those guys, because it was a lot of fun, and I learned just as much from you as maybe I taught you. So, no, that I appreciate that. Dude, I was looking at, speaking of TJ Williams, I was looking at the Iowa record books literally just yesterday, doing some research, and that guy was 98-1 at Iowa.
Yeah, he was the truth,
dude. He went to junior college first at a school in California where a lot of guys, a lot of good guys would go. I think it was called Lindenwood, and yeah, dude, 98-1. His only loss was the semis of the Nationals his junior year. And is he still doing that club down there?
I think so. He's got some family stuff going on, but I know that he's. I mean, I still see the TJ Train T-shirts, and I always go up to everybody I see it and be like, I know that T-shirt.
Right, right.
So I think he's still doing it, and Medlin was there with him, and he ran the Greco part of it, but now Medlin's at the University of Illinois, so I'm not sure if it's just freestyle there or not right now.
Man, that's a guy who Medlin just grinded and worked his way up, dude. Like went from being, definitely a Greco specialist, then becomes the head coach at a school really no one's ever heard of, Washington. Then they become a powerhouse, and then he goes on to be the Illinois RTC coach. Like that's an incredible coaching story.
Yeah, and he's one of the best coaches I've ever experienced. I mean, he's up there.
Really?
He helped me a lot. Yeah, I mean, just from a mindset standpoint of how to compete, and just his technical side of freestyle and Greco is unbelievable. I went to the Fresh Off State tournament, and he had a freestyle clinic, and I was like pen and paper writing stuff down still.
Wow, I got to get that guy on, man. I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah,
do you know him?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Because I wrestled for him a little bit, and then Washington is real tight with Oak Park. So we went to his
because
Greco
Medlin
camp.
and yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I actually wrestled in his Greco camp because I wanted to learn some Greco, and it was it was phenomenal. It was one of the best wrestling camp experiences I've ever had. And I
had
was
to be awesome, dude.
23. Yeah, it was a good time.
You've been through a lot already, and then you were still learning from there.
Yeah.
So, when was that Morningstar workout? Like the spring of your senior year?
Late spring, early summer of my senior year.
Okay. So when did you get there? Like you check into the dorms and you have your first workout, like the wrestling team workout. How early is that? And what was that like?
So I actually I worked part-time with my dad when he was working in the weld shop. I worked part-time there, probably about 20 to 30 hours a week, and then they let me leave early 3 times a week to drive up to Iowa City and go through their summer training camp. So that was kind of my first introduction as far as wrestling at Iowa, was the summer camps. And it was humbling. Anybody
Is that only for freshmen or?
No, it's the whole team. It's like their summer training camp. So they have the Iowa wrestling camps for the youth kids going on.
Yeah.
And then in the off hours, they'll have a club practice, the Hawkeye Wrestling Club practice, where all the college guys go. And anytime that I didn't wrestle another incoming freshman, I did not that I didn't score a point, I didn't sniff a takedown for at least 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was brutal. And I talked to Juergens about it, 'cause like, somebody's got to know what I'm going through. And he's like, yeah, we all go through. I call it the darkness. He said that it's like between 3 and 6 months that those incoming guys will struggle, whether it's like they can't score or they're not having as much success as they would. And then after that 3 to 6 month window, you start to he calls it coming out of the darkness, and you're changed. It's like gladiator training. You're hardened to battle. So that, like, if I was to give some advice to anybody going through a college program right now or going into one, that freshman season's coming up, is to just keep grinding. Don't get discouraged. And just keep moving forward, keep getting better, focusing on positive things, what you're doing well and where you can improve, and try not to dwell on the negative aspect of you getting your butt whipped day in and day out, because that's going to happen. It happens to everybody.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I can't even imagine, dude, how humbling that must be. And then, so what year did you crack into the lineup as a full-time starter? Junior and senior?
Yeah, so let's see,
a little bit your junior year, most of
my redshirt sophomore year, I wrestled a couple duels. Just kind of as like they took me to all the duels and stuff. I was a backup for Josh Cheva.
Okay.
Which was a good experience. I kind of learned how to travel. I kind of learned how to get myself ready for duels. And it had to have been frustrating for Jeva because I took it super serious. And in my head, I was wrestling every single match.
Yeah.
But that's what they wanted. But look, like, I could definitely see how it might have been frustrating for Jeva because he knew he was the starter and he was a bad dude. But yeah, my red shirt.
I know that. Yeah, that dude is tough. He's trying PA, right?
Yeah. He's actually, I think he's coaching out at Drexel now. I think he's the assistant out there.
Yeah.
And then, so my redshirt junior year, I had a couple notes written down, but this is one of the kind of adversity topics. We talked about some things you want to talk about, and I actually was in a battle for the lineup my redshirt junior year with my high school teammate Brody Grothus, and it was tough because I felt like I was the best guy, and he felt like he was the best guy. And we never had an official wrestle off for that spot. And it was one of those times where I'm sure you felt it, something that you really care about and you've been working really hard for, and you can feel it slipping through your fingers.
Yeah.
It was demoralizing and stressful. But again,
what time of the year did it? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, yeah, you're good. What time did they figure it out?
Yeah, like what time of the year did you think, like, you realized like this probably isn't going to go my way this year?
I was on weight for the Big Ten weigh-ins in Iowa State.
Oh my God, that late in the year?
They told us to both be ready to make weight. And I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it. I'm game. A couple weeks before that, I kind of had a feeling that it wasn't going to be that way. But I mean, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks at the most. But I was ready to wrestle. I was down to weight. I came in on, it was like 130 or 140.8 or something like that. I walked in the doors and I sat in the wrestling room until Grothus came back from weigh-ins. And then I was like, all right, now I'm good. I'm done.
Wow.
Yeah, it was,
crazy.
it was an experience. And we actually split a lot of matches. We probably split close to half the matches. We'd go on road trips and he'd wrestle one and I'd wrestle one. And it's my fault. I remember there was a match against Nebraska where that was my chance to make a statement, and I got taken down for 4 points right away, taken down on my back 2-2. And I battled back, and then I got a late takedown, and I cut the guy and rushed the takedown and dove in on a leg, and he ended up winning by 1. And had I won that match, I who knows? Speculation, I might have been the guy. But I don't hold anything against Grothus. He did what he had to do. I don't hold anything against Tom and Terry. They're trying to win, and they did what they felt was best. And I think that while that was hard for me mentally, I think it brought us closer, and as far as like me and Tom and Terry, because they could tell that I was hurting, and that they wanted to like show their appreciation in a way. And they pulled me aside and were kind of talking to me, and I stopped them. Like, hey man, like don't worry about it. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's move forward. Let's focus on the future. I had 1 more year left, and I wanted to make the most of it. And I think that kind of spoke volumes to them as far as my commitment to what I was trying to do.
That's a great story. So what did they say? I mean, a great story in terms of like how mature you were like mentally to handle that at that time. So like, what did they say to you when they noticed you were kind of down, and like, what's it like having those one-on-one conversations with them about something like that?
It's very much like a father figure. Everybody likes to think that they're robots and they're just intense and only like to talk about wrestling, but it's not true. Tom and Terry are some of the most loving individuals I've ever experienced in my entire life. They'll have us over for holidays. I was at Terry's house on Thanksgiving Day because I didn't want to go home. I wanted to be in Iowa City to train, and he had 4, 5, 6 of us over to his house on Thanksgiving Day. But those conversations are very individualized. They do a good job of speaking to the individual and not just kind of giving you jargon and what you want to hear. They're honest, and that's kind of what it needs to be in that situation. You don't want to blow smoke up anybody's butt or pull some punches and tell them something that's not true. They do a very good job of speaking from the heart. But they pulled me aside, and it was after the national tournament, after Big Tens, and Grothus had a tough tournament and didn't make it out of the Big Tens. It was a tough weight that year. 41 is, I mean, what Big Tens at 141 is every year is super deep.
Totally.
He didn't make it out, and I think that kind of played a little bit into the coaching staff's mind of should we have done this? Should we have done that? And they were kind of talking to me that way about, well, maybe we should have wrestled you. I'm like, there's no point talking like this right now. It's stuff that's in the past.
It's done. Yeah.
It's over with. So let's move forward and let's start working for next year. This is like, I'm training for universities at this time. I'm wrestling freestyle. And he pulled me aside in the room and kind of sat me down. And I think there might be an interview or two out there about that somewhere. I don't remember. I try not to get into it just because I love Grothus, and he's was a high school teammate of mine and a big mentor. Yep. And I don't really want to talk bad about the situation at all. But I think that had we wrestled off, I think I would have won, and I'm sure he thinks that he would have won. But we'll never know.
Anyone who's competitive would think that, so that no one would even fault you for thinking that way, especially when you're at that level, man. At that point, you had been there 4 years because you redshirted. Now you're going into your 5th year, and like, do the workouts and the practices, they start to become normal a little bit, and it's not as taxing on the body at a certain point?
Yes and no. So I'm trying to think of this. It was my 3rd year. I had a pretty serious foot injury. I had a Liz Frank tear in my foot wrestling freestyle. So I spent a lot of time rehabbing that and just trying to make sure my body healed up. My ankles were but at that point in my career, I was double taping, double bracing my ankles, icing basically my entire body every day just to make sure I was healthy. And like you said, it was my 5th year, it was my last chance. But those workouts don't ever really get normal. I think you just get more accustomed to it because they do a very good job of continuing to develop and continuing to push you in unique ways. And that's like for instance, when me and Grothus were in the battle for the spot, we had a workout where I didn't know it at the time, but they were testing us. I just thought it was a workout, and it was like 30 or 35 pound dumbbells. And we had to hold them and carry them up and down the stairs 10 times, the stairs at Carver Hawkeye, and without putting them down. Which
no
is
way.
brutal.
Up and down 10 times?
With 35 pound dumbbells without putting them down.
That's like 5 flights, right?
It's far. It's far, and it gets steeper as you go. Yeah, it was a distance. But like that, like you don't ever get accustomed to that. They just call you up and it's like, all right, come on in, we got something for you.
So what's a day in the life like when you're in the Iowa room, like your senior year, when you are the starter? Like, let's say it's like mid-January.
Mid-January. So I benefited a lot. My 4th year, I moved into an apartment right across the street from Carver Hawkeye Arena. I think it was my 4th or 5th year. And that helped me a lot because when you're in the lineup or you're battling for the lineup, you're basically wrestling and going to class, and then wrestling and then going to class. So being a 3-minute walk from the locker room was crucial for me, just from a relaxation and less of a stress situation. I could always go in there. But as far as a typical day, I would get up about like 6-ish, 6:30, get some calories in me, like a yogurt. That was one thing I nailed down my diet. I got my yogurt, I got my water, and then I'd go work out. And I'd go either get a lift or a drill in. And at this point, I had both Dardanes brothers there wrestling at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, so they were kind of
awesome guys. I mean, I don't know them, but like awesome
personal coach,
like crazy fierce competitors.
Yeah, one time we were wrestling, one of them double legged me and teed me into the pole. That was an experience. Yeah.
So when you did these morning workouts, would it be like, would Tom be there? Would it just be by yourself? Would anyone be in the room? Like, what was the atmosphere like?
So I got into a group. Me and Terry gelled very early on, of like him as a coach. And I think that might have been more like Tom was very focused on like the top 15, top 20 guys at the time. And he got a lot better at it throughout like my college career of focusing on the entire team. And from what I talk about to the other guys now, he's moving around the room. But when I was there, me and Terry got along really well. A lot of people don't know this, but he's kind of like a Star Wars, Star Trek dork, like I am. So we kind of talked about that a little bit. Either one?
Never seen either one of them. Not a minute of either one, brother.
God, I'm gonna have to send you those videos. But no, we had a group drilling. We would lift 3 times a week and drill 2 times a week. Depending, sometimes it would be drill 3 times a week, lift 2 times a week, depending on the lifting cycle. But it was Terry would kind of structure it a little bit, and it would be Gilman had his partner. I had my partner, and these were usually younger guys, like 2nd, 3rd year guys that knew how to drill, but also were developing. So I had my guy, Gilman would have his guy, and then there'd be probably 4 starters ish that were all drilling, and having that many people definitely makes it easier to go in for a 60, 90-minute workout and get it in hard.
Yep.
But he was structured things. And then if you had specific things to work on, he would come in on his own as well if you needed extra work, either before or after. And I did that a lot. I was struggling a lot with like leg defense and down blocks, and he analyzed it really quickly and realized that I was thinking too much and I was using my eyes instead of feeling.
Okay.
This is I mentioned the Star Wars stuff because he knew that I was a big Star Wars nerd, and he called it Jedi Training, and I teach it still today. I learned how to wrestle with my eyes closed. You'd put your hands on the guy in position, and you would wrestle with your eyes closed, and you would have to feel how they were moving, and with your pressure forward, you can feel when they're lowering their level to attack, when your attacks are there without seeing it. And it forces you to feel instead of think. And that's one of the phrases that he used to say to me: feel, don't think, feel. So that was a big movement in my development was that. And then having my eyes closed, I mentioned the Dardanes brothers and learning how to sprawl with your eyes closed so you can feel it. I would close my eyes, and this is from a distance, and they would tee off double legs on me, and I would have to learn how to float my hips off from space. It was so frustrating for about a month until I figured it out.
Dang. So you're going through all these little mini battles throughout your time there, all these little learning moments. I just can't even imagine what it's like to be in that room. I mean, and then so you'd have the workouts, you go to class, and then would you come back in to watch film? And like, when was practice, and what was that like usually?
So we'd have our morning workout, and then you'd go to class. My senior year was awesome, though, because I was, like, first semester I was about 80% online, and then my second semester I was completely online because I didn't have very many classes left. And so I would go home and get my homework done and take a nap if I had time and get some food in me. We'd have afternoon practice at about 3:30, and that'd be drilling and hard wrestling and conditioning and everything like that. And then you'd go home and get any homework done you had, or go to any meetings or any night classes. And then usually there'd be a group of 5, 6, 7 of us that would come back in and break a sweat and ice and kind of stretch and foam roll and recover.
At night after practice?
Yeah, so like probably about like 8:39-ish, just for like 30 to probably 45 minutes to an hour. We would break our sweat again, whether it was running or drilling or biking or whatever, just nice and light, and ice and foam roll and recover and get all that soreness out of you. Any weight management you needed to do. And then
was that ever an issue for you there, the weight cutting?
Not really. Early on, when I was young and immature and didn't want to listen to anybody, it was. But I really had to change my diet a lot. I was on that typical high school weight cutting diet where it's all protein. You start limiting your water, not a lot of carbs, and the coaching staff realized early that I wasn't having energy after about an hour of the workout, which makes sense. Like, if you think about it from a nutrition standpoint, you don't have any of those complex carbs to take you to that 90, 120 minute range that you need. So they actually changed my diet to about 70 to 80% carbs. It's probably about 70% carbs. And then 20 to 25% protein, lean protein. And when I say carbs, I wish it was like breads and like donuts and like delicious stuff like that. But it was a lot of like brown rice and whole grain pastas and stuff like that. And it was interesting because I had way more energy and the weight just melted off of me. And I was drinking a gallon or two of water every day, and the weight just melted off of me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's crazy how there's proven ways to do that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, these guys would know. I mean, they've seen so many guys. Dude, I can't believe this. It's already been an hour. I have a sales call in about 2 minutes, so I gotta run, man. But as we close down, what would you say are like some of the biggest lessons you learned from Iowa that you try to teach your guys now?
Biggest lessons, the biggest one that I preach is having a positive mindset, having an outlook on life in your wrestling that's positive instead of negative. We had multiple people come and talk to us, and the importance of positivity and training in your life is, in my opinion, the most important thing. Above nutrition, above intensity of training. If you don't have a positive outlook on what you're doing, you're going to hate what you're doing. If you don't have a positive outlook on things, you're going to be down on yourself. You're not looking for what you're doing well. And that's what I preach at Eastern Iowa is a positive mindset, a positive outlook, to the point where if you need to write down positive thoughts 5 times a day, that's something that they told us to do, and I did it. Things you did well, training your brain to be positive, especially with youth guys that I coach and that they bump their head and they start crying or anything. I tell them, you got positive thoughts only in here. We don't have any negative thoughts. Positive thoughts only. And it seems to help. The guys seem to be buying into it, but that was something that made a big changing point in my wrestling was having a positive mindset and a positive outlook on training, matches, school, sleep, life, anything, relationships, is positivity.
I love it, man. We'll have to have you back on soon. Let's catch up soon. I gotta hop on this call, but man, great chatting with you, and just wish you nothing but the best, brother.
All right, man. Good talking to you.
That's the end of this episode, but definitely not the end of the show. For more episodes, please go to wrestlingchangemylife.org. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Give us a star rating. Show the love, baby. Show the love. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Peace.